So those bhikkhus who liked living in these desolate forests often had many unusual experiences in things which happened, such as were associated with ghosts, Devata, Indra, Brahma, Nagas, tigers, and other animals. On occasions, they were also visited by the Savaka Arahants who came to give some teaching.
Chapter 7. The Story of Venerable Ajaan Chob. At this point I shall relate the story of Ajaan Chob, an elder disciple of Venerable Ajaan Mun, who had many experiences of a similar nature to those of Venerable Ajaan. When you who read this and have thought about his experiences and what the truth of them is from your viewpoint, which is that of a reader reading about the experiences of someone else that are not your own experiences, you should consider how you will think and feel about it when the time comes for you to experience such things yourself, if you attain the ability to do so. This should be kept in mind constantly while reading the following. This Thera has since died, and there is no need to hide his identity. He had a natural tendency to like wandering in the forests and hills, but he disliked any involvement with other bhikkhus and samaneras, for he saw the value in living alone, deep in the forests and hills, both for himself and for other beings whose nature is subtle and mysterious, such as the Devaputta, Devata, Indra, Brahma, ghosts, Nagas, Asurakaya, and so on. The beings in these realms of existence are hidden from the sight of human beings, so it seems as if they have no meaning and no existence in the world of people and in the three worlds of existence at all. These unusual beings begged the Thera to consider them, saying that they have belief in good and bad Dhamma, in merit and demerit, in the hells, the heavens, and Nibbana, in the same way as human beings who also believe in these things. But they have no way to show themselves and what they understand, so as to let the world know about themselves in an open, self-evident manner like others who live in the world. Only rarely do they meet a person who is long-sighted, meaning one who has a special means of knowing which is not prejudiced or biased in the totality of what exists, who comes and acknowledges them once in a while. They said that none of these beings like becoming involved with human beings, men and women, who are gross in body and mind, and whose minds have aggression hidden within them, which gives no confidence and freedom from fear to others living together with them in the world, excepting only those who have a moral nature, Sīlaratano, in their hearts. For even though their bodies are gross, this is just the way of nature for those who are subject to the laws of Dhamma to which all must submit. For these, none of the Devatas hold any objection or dislike. But such people are very rare and difficult to find and meet, although they are able to give peace to us because of their virtue which they also impart to others in various ways. But they are not able to know about and make contact with us directly, and the only link between us is virtue. People of this kind bring widespread peace to the world, both directly and indirectly, and in ways that are manifestly apparent or hidden, and not restricted to place or time, and are boundless. Even amongst the ghosts, those whose Dhamma is sufficiently mild also get peace from people of this kind, who always give and share out their merit and virtue, and those who have Deva bodies always rejoice, Anumodana, with them. May they have prosperity and long life, and long may they continue to help the world before they give it up to go and enjoy their own valuable and subtle wealth. But in your own case, Venerable Sir, you are a special person in that you are complete with moral behavior, replete with Dhamma, and your heart is bright with knowing and with the virtue of Dhamma, which is worthy of the highest praise and faith. All of us ask and invite you to stay here to bless us by your presence for a long time, and so as to help with your compassion those beings in the world who are unfortunate, in so far as their state of being and level of existence is concerned, as understood from the viewpoint of people in the world. Then we could all come and listen to your teaching to increase our pure merit, Bunya Bharami, greatly, and also to act as a condition or cause leading to the path, fruition, and Nibbana, which is the highest Dhamma in this kind of world. The Venerable Ajaan said that while he was staying far away in the mountains, Those who generally made contact with him ranged from the Devas living nearby or far away and in the higher or lower realms, to Nagas and ghosts of all kinds, and there was hardly a single night that they did not come. But he was also able to do his own practice for Dhamma at suitable times and regularly. In finding time for resting his body, there was no difficulty, and he was able to keep on receiving his mysterious guests without ceasing. Both by day and night he hardly had any spare time with nothing to do, yet everything went more smoothly than usual, much more so than would be the case in living with a lot of people, bhikkhus and samaneras, when it is hardly possible to get any peace while in contact with them. But having association with those living in the realms of the Devas at all levels, regardless of however many came, the effect was as though nobody was there at all, and in presenting Dhamma to them it came entirely from the heart, without any need to use any physical energy for communication. In fact, while presenting Dhamma to them, it seemed, in respect to what one feels, that the body was not there at all, for there was just knowing and Dhamma meeting together and coming out. Meanwhile, feelings of tiredness never arose while presenting Dhamma for those beings to hear. As soon as the Ajaan finished teaching them, it seemed that these beings were all smiling, bright and cheerful, and all of them simultaneously said Sātu 3 times, and the sound of it echoed through all the realms, Lokatatu. Venerable Ajaan Mun used to tell us of some of his experiences, which were almost identically the same. When there was a Dhamma discussion, their aim was to gain true knowledge and understanding. In the same way as someone going along a road where they had never been before may fear that they were going the wrong way, and would ask with concerned interest whether they were on the right road. Some of them would converse using the usual language of the heart, but others would talk using the Bali language, which was the language of the Buddha. But the Ajaan understood the meaning of the Bali they used, which had one and the same meaning as the language of the heart. The Venerable Ajaan said that when he had withdrawn from Samadhi, he tried to write notes of the many questions in Bali which the Devatas often asked. While Venerable Ajaan Mun was still alive, he would go and ask him the meaning of those questions. But Venerable Ajaan Mun said, "Although Bali words used everywhere in the world have specific meanings, those which arise spontaneously within one, and those which the Devatas use in asking questions, are words used in a special way, only applicable to the people concerned at that time and place. It would probably be quite unsuitable to relate what was said to the world in general. For even though the meaning may make good sense and be quite clear when translated from Bali as used in the world, the Bali which arises spontaneously in a specific individual to express what he intends has a meaning which relates only to that individual, and is not generally applicable elsewhere. So, even if I were to translate this to you, it may not correspond to the meaning which you understand from those same Bali words, and I do not want to translate them, because words which arise from the heart, whether Bali or the language of the heart, and whether giving a warning or advice or whatever else, are only likely to be understood and to give their meaning with certainty to that person alone. Others could only analyze the words which were intended for that person, and this would distort the meaning of the Dhamma which was spoken just for that person. I understand well enough about the Dhamma which is spoken and arises spontaneously within one, both that which is for myself, as well as that which is for the Devaputtas, Devata, and all the others who are capable of making contact, for these Dhammas have been arising within me continually, and in fact, if I were to say that they constantly arise as the complement of the practice of Samadhi Bhavana, it would not be wrong. But Dhammas such as these can also arise at other times. Sometimes they arise while walking Jangama, while just sitting down normally, while walking for Paṭipadā, while eating food, and while talking with friends and associates. When one stops, they arise, and also when pausing just for a moment while presenting Dhamma, they arise. They arise without any regard for time, place, or situation. But to say that they come from my character does not seem right to me, because when I first started to practice and was still floundering about, I never saw any of these Dhammas arise. They only began to arise when my practice had developed to the point where I knew a little bit about it. From then until my citta had developed samadhi and wisdom, right up to the present, these Dhammas gradually became a constant companion as the citta became stronger. Nowadays, these Dhammas keep arising all the time, endlessly, without any special conditions, such as the need to be in a special situation or place. For they arise in any situation, any place, as they will, and in general I consider them as private and personal Dhammas, to be understood just by myself. I never think of asking anyone to translate them to me, except when I want to know the meaning from someone who is able to translate Dhamma sayings such as this, so as to compare it with my own understanding. So I sometimes ask someone about such things, not because I haven't understood the meaning of that saying of Dhamma and want to know what it means, for I fully understand everything that is Dhamma, both within others and myself. Therefore I do not want to translate this for you, for even though I am your Acharya, the essential meaning which you should know and understand from this Dhamma which spoke up within you is something which has more value than any translation of mine." "He never did translate it," said Venerable Ajaan Chob. "But, in fact, I never really had any doubts about it, and what Venerable Ajaan said was absolutely true, and I had to agree with everything." The Devatas visit him to hear Dhamma. Venerable Ajaan Chob said that the Devatas would come and listen to his Dhamma. At times many came, and at other times few, but in general there were not so many as came to visit Venerable Ajaan Mun. Sometimes between 50 and 60 came, sometimes from 1 to 600, and on rare occasions there were thousands. The clothes which the Devatas wore, whether from the upper or the lower realms, would all be the same, sometimes white, sometimes red, but none of them would be obtrusive. None of them ever had on any jewels, decorations, or makeup, whatever group they were, and however often they came. For when they came to visit a bhikkhu who was possessed of virtue and Dhamma, which all of them venerated highly and had faith in, their leader would let it be known that none of them should wear any decorations or makeup while visiting the bhikkhu, and their dress should be appropriate and correct, in the manner of the Buddhist lay devotees. Their manners and behavior were beautifully graceful, impressive to see and captivating to the heart, and having seen them, one never felt bored and uninterested. It is an example which we human beings would do well to adopt when visiting a bhikkhu or the sangha in a monastery or elsewhere, so as to give an appearance of seemliness, which does not cause offense or revulsion, such that having seen it one feels a disgust which one cannot easily shake off. But who is capable of telling people about the Devaputtas and Devatas, so that they would believe it enough to learn and to take them as an example to be followed and practiced? Who is bold enough to undertake this task? For as soon as they hear anyone talking about Devatas, Pretas, and ghosts, whether in fun or seriously, they just laugh at him. As for anyone suggesting that the world of human beings should take up the standards of social behavior of the Deva worlds, they would say he was mad, deranged. Even a mental institution would hardly accept him for treatment. So don't you think he would just die worthlessly while still being infected by madness? After the elder had finished, we both laughed and paused for a short while. Then I could not resist the impulse to sound out the elder, half seriously, half in fun, saying, "I think the Venerable Ajaan should himself be the one to introduce people to the etiquette of the Devatas, because you have actually seen them yourself. So why should they say that you are mad? People in the world, when they go abroad and see things in various foreign countries, talk about them after they return home, and they introduce some things from abroad to improve things and solve problems in their homes and towns. Thus they introduce regulations and customs for people in our country to follow. For instance, in Thailand, the styles of dress and clothing have almost completely changed into those as used in other countries, both for men and women, young and old. For our Thai people are easy to teach, not being stubborn and inflexible like in some other countries. For the more styles of dress and decoration they have, the more they like it, and they make copies of other people's styles as well as or better than the originals. They also have the most wonderful memories for anything which they see or hear that is strange and fascinating. Now, when we think of the dress styles in the realms of the Dewa worlds, which none of them have ever seen, not even those who go flying about in space, there is no doubt that they would grasp at them and admire these Dewa styles as soon as they were displayed to the world. If people were shown the way, I think that there would be many who should be interested, because this is the style of the upper classes. After I had finished saying this, we both had a good laugh. Then the Venerable Elder replied, saying, "What you say is, as usual, too extravagant. If I was to do as you say, I would not be able to live in Thailand for certain. I would surely have to be exiled amongst the pretas and ghosts, because people would accuse me of being one of them, and they would drive me out to live with the pretas and ghosts, for sure. As for sending me to live amongst the devas and brahmas, there is no hope of this, because their status is very exalted and respectable. But it is to the realms of the pretas and ghosts that they would exile me, because their status is low and inferior, which nobody wants to pay respect to. If this were to happen, what would you say then?" Again we had a good laugh, and the Venerable Ajaan went on speaking. "Please don't ever suggest that I should introduce the manners and customs of the devas and brahmas to people in this world, for people still respect the sasana and the Lord Buddha, and hold them in the highest regard, and the Dhamma which we have discussed is to be found within them. So if anyone is interested enough to practice this way, there is nothing lacking in all the teachings of Dhamma which are available to people, unless, that is, one is too stupid. But that which I told you about was for you alone, and I did not think of it as being for other people. Then, as soon as I tell you of these things that happened, you immediately ask me to teach the ways and customs of the devatas to people in general. It would be the greatest misfortune for anyone who starts to think of teaching these subtle ways and manners for the world. I couldn't do it. In fact, I shouldn't even think about it." "I merely suggested it on the spur of the moment," I replied. "If you don't like it, you should not force yourself to do it." We talked together in a relaxed, intimate way, as bhikkhus who are alone and have complete confidence in each other. Many groups of devatas who came to visit him on various occasions had preferences for different aspects of Dhamma. Some liked to be given the moral precepts, Sīla, before listening to Dhamma. Some wanted to listen to Dhamma straight away. Some liked the higher and some the lower Sangyojana Dhammas, but most preferred the lower group. Some liked to hear the Dhammacakka Pavatana Sutta, others the Karaniya Metta Sutta, and yet others preferred to listen to the Sangaha Dhamma, which is concerned with helping each other. He said that they variously had their own peculiar preferences, each being different, but they followed the wishes of the majority when many of them came. They variously liked listening to Dhamma in accordance with their tendencies of character, much as some people do. Some liked to hear about Metta and the Brahma Viharas. Others liked to hear some suttas which Ajaan Chob had never heard of before, and he could only tell them that he didn't know anything about these suttas, so they asked to hear another sutta which they liked. He said that the devatas loved and respected him very much and did not want him to go elsewhere. They wanted him to stay a long time with them, for they told him that while he stayed there, their hearts were very peaceful. At night they would hear the sound of his chanting and developing the Dhamma of Metta, and they were deeply affected by the Dhamma which he chanted a great deal, so that they did not want him to stop. He said that in doing this chanting he only did it mentally, and did not do it out loud such that anyone could hear it. But when the devatas came to visit him, they would ask him to chant various special suttas which made them feel happy, and which they enjoyed listening to more than any other suttas. While he was chanting, they listened intently and completely absorbed. He asked them, "How do you know when I am chanting these suttas?" They immediately answered, saying that The sound of your chanting reverberates through all the worlds, and how could we not hear it? Dhamma is very subtle and refined, and when it is brought out and proclaimed by chanting or recitation, it is bound to resonate throughout the worlds, to let everyone hear it who is able to hear it in the whole Lokatatu.